It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Sean Widmer Podcast. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening or watching on YouTube. I really appreciate it. We've got stuff today. Before that, though, I'm just kind of bummed. Right before I started recording this, I was just kind of looking at the World Wide Web, and we'll talk about why. My Kelly's What Are You Into is why I was on the internet, and I saw Venezuela was trending, and so just really quickly, I'm bummed out. I'm saddened by the fact that it looks like, the place is just, oh man, it's not going to go well right now. As they're in an election, Nicolas Maduro, the dictator there, he's got the National Guard blocking and shutting down the voting spaces so that people can't vote for the opposition, so he'll win and he'll remain dictator, and Venezuela will stay under a dictatorship and just continue to be in a bad spot. There was some videos of, I think, Wilson Contreras, is that his name, Wilson Contreras, baseball player, hit a home run yesterday, Major League Baseball player, and got to the back to the dugout, started crying, hugging one of his teammates because he's sad. It's sad. And I bring it up just because I'm bummed out about it. Bring awareness to it a little bit. I don't know if there's anything that the four of us who are involved in listening and recording this podcast can do about it, but it's just to bring up awareness. Like maybe your day was going bad. Maybe your day, you think that everything going on here in the States is a little bit crazy. It is. I'm not trying to downplay it because it is, but just know that I say this a lot. I tell this in my head a lot. I really want to convey this to my kids. We have it really well here in the U.S. We have it really, really well. We're very spoiled. We are very fortunate. And I know that that's just easy to say with a world perspective as opposed to, okay, we can look at it with a U.S. perspective because we live in the U.S. But when I see the Venezuela stuff that breaks my heart, it does just kind of take me back to growing up there and realizing that when we came back here, the culture shock my sister and I had. My parents grew up here, so they were familiarized with it. But my sister and I grew up all our formidable years in Venezuela. And just the shock of coming back here and realizing the reality of everything that's here and everything you get. And so it's hard for me still as a 42-year-old who hasn't been in Venezuela since 2000. It was such a big impact in me. It still resonates in my brain at all the stuff that I took away from there. And just the fact that we have it way better than I think a lot of people make it out to be. You go on the internet, you just see fighting, vitriol, hatred, a lot of political stuff. People so mad, and it's like, man, go look at the Venezuela stuff on your timeline. Type it in. You're on social media, keyboard warriors who are out there getting ready to be rowdy for the November election. Just take a moment on your social media platform, type in Venezuela, and look at real crappy politics. Take a look at that. It's sad to me because it's one of my favorite places, right? I grew up there. It's so near and dear to my heart. It's a place that I love. I'm so passionate about, and I'm sad to the core. And I can't explain this to people who didn't grow up in this weird world that I grew up in, where you grew up in a different country. I can't explain it to people, but I'm sickened that I'm not going to be able to take my family to where I grew up. I don't want to get emotional, but to the place that I love, the places that I loved growing up, the city that I grew up in, the weird, like the Mount Baldy, climb Mount Baldy, go to Arcoiris, get ice cream. My daughter would go bananas for that. See the gigantic Catholic church there that's so huge and everything that's there around that, and go to La Petite Poupée and all these things. Like I'm not going to be able to share my life with my family, with the people that are the most important to me, because that country is in such shambles. Okay, this was not meant to be a podcast about this, but I just saw it before I came in. I'm not trying to get emotional for it. Sorry, YouTube people. But man, I love that place, man. I love that place. I hate that I can't go there. I hate it. I would save up my shekels in a second to take my kids there. Oh, it'd be so cool, man. It'd be so cool. Maybe go with my mom and dad, see if my sister could go, do the big family thing, her kids, Travis born there, just the whole fam, go back to where we grew up and just show the grandkids, the nieces and nephews, but it's never going to happen. So anyways, okay, let's do the podcast today. We've got Kelly's What Are You Into? It's going to be the majority of this podcast because it's cool and I'm excited about it. Really excited about it. But we always start the podcast off reading 5-star reviews from iTunes, there are none. So we don't do that today. We'll get to the comments at the end of the podcast, the comments from Spotify or from Sean'sLife.com. Patreon people, you are the reason why this show exists. Thank you to the Patreon members for making it so that you can listen to me get emotional about my homeland. The United States is my homeland. It is. My growing up land, Venezuela. Sorry about that. But thank you, Patreon people, for making it possible. Tomorrow is the day. Or excuse me. Yeah, tomorrow. Tuesday is the day. We're starting something new for the Patreon people. It's been my favorite thing. It was my favorite thing about radio. I loved this as a listener before I got into radio, and then as a talk show host, talk show producer, all that and everything in between. I love games. Love games. And I love trivia. And one of the things I'm most proud about from my time in radio was coming up with a game we played on the Jay and Kevin show called hang on, Beat the Show. Beat the Show. It was a seven question trivia game we played every day at 8:20, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite things that I made. I loved running it. I loved playing it. I loved hearing people play it. I loved it when people were excited about it. I love trivia. I love going to bar trivia. So I've always wanted to do something like that on the podcast. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call it Trivia 21. It's going to be available on Tuesdays to you Patreon folk. Trivia 21. I'm a big fan of the basketball game 21. I'm a big fan of trivia, so let's combine them in a trivia fashion. So I've been thinking about this for maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months now. A lot of the things I consume on podcasts and on YouTube are trivia shows. And that's everything from Barstool's The Dozen to Kind of Funny's Games Showdown, which is all video game trivia they do every Friday. And I got turned on to trivia. Well, I used to listen to a trivia podcast that was by NPR. It no longer exists, and I forget what it was called, but I listened to that weekly. I loved it. There's Doug Loves Movies, a movie trivia podcast I listened to forever that I still peek in on from time to time. But I got tipped off to a podcast called Trivia Time by my friends Mike and Robin. And they listened to it on their drive from Spokane to Lexington. It's really great. It's bar trivia. This was my bar trivia group. It's pretty much bar trivia. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And now that I've heard the podcast, I'm ripping it off. That's when I realized there's a ton of these, a ton of them. And a ton of them on YouTube, a ton of them on just podcast services. And so then I was like, okay, this is something I can do. So on Tuesdays, it's going to be 3 rounds of trivia. And there's going to be 2 themed rounds of questions, a first round and then last round. And then in the middle, there's going to be 7 music trivia questions, which was always one of my favorite parts of trivia when we'd go to trivia night in Spokane. Shout out to Colin, who at least he was. I don't know if he still is, but he's doing the trivia he does the trivia at Press in Spokane, at Brick West in Spokane, and at Backyard Public House in Spokane. I think he did a great job with his trivia questions. He also did a picture round, which won't work for podcast purposes, but the music round will. So that is going to happen, and it's going to be out every Tuesday. And the way I'm going to promote it is I want this to be something you do with someone to bond. You can do it by yourself in the car, totally fine. That's how I listen to a lot of the trivia stuff. But my hope is that you use it with a group, you use it however in that way where you can listen to it with other people. You can do trivia against them or with them. You can do teams if you have people over. And then I'll provide a trivia game every week that you can play. That's going to be available for Patreon people. So the people who support this podcast, who make it happen, you're going to get that. And then that's a little bit of an incentive to, put your $5, $10, $20 towards this podcast every month. That helps fund the podcast and make it so I can do it. And I feel way better about doing that if I'm providing you with something that feels purchasable. And a trivia game every week feels purchasable, and that will make me feel like that transaction is a lot better, even though I really am appreciative of the Patreon people because there are costs to running this podcast that are covered by the Patreon people. But that's what we're going to do. I'm real excited about it. We'll debut the first one tomorrow for Patreon people. Holy cow, that was a long time. I haven't even got to Kelly's What Are You Into yet. Oh, I got to give a shout out to my guy, First Timer, Nick. He sent me a message the other day, and it was about the backpack. Okay, it's about the backpack thing. I talked about getting my work backpack, and he sent me a good idea on things to do. Now Nick's actually a professional, successful professional, big boy job, big boy pants. I'm sure he wears big boy underpants. And he sent me a very nice message. Congrats on the first day back at work. You're going to be exhausted at some point. Yes. He said, backpack stuff I have. Laptop. Okay, I need to incorporate that. I haven't got my work laptop yet. Charger. Okay. Extra phone charger. Brilliant. Need that. Keeps his wallet in it. Extra pens. A portfolio/legal pad, an extra pair of sunglasses. And then he said, and for old time's sakes, buy some of these and stunt on these young fools. And he sent me a picture, and I was hoping, Nick, it was going to be like an Amazon link, but I don't think you can find these, to pencils that all of us who are around my age had, the NFL pencils. Oh, they look so great. All the old NFL logos. I had them as a kid. They're so great. I loved them. If I can find those, Nick, I will put them in the backpack. But I love the people who are still sending me backpack things. In fact, you know what? Let's just get to a comment. We normally do comments at the end, but Garrett said this. You killed it on the Blackstone recommendations. Thank you, Garrett. I would never have thought of pizza rolls or fried rice. Not sure when I'll get to it with harvest starting Monday, but I'll let you know for sure when I do. All right, good luck on harvest. Starts the day this podcast is released. Keep up the great work on the pod. P.S. Put a crescent wrench, duct tape, and zip ties in the new bag. That'll help fill some of the pockets. Okay, so I have duct tape. So I'm going to need to go out and figure out where to buy the other ones, G. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, well, I love the backpack suggestions. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to switch over tomorrow. I've been taking my normal backpack. I think tomorrow I'm going to enter the office with the office backpack. Most of the people who were at work last week, I noticed, have the office backpack, and I felt dumb without the logo strapped to my back. Do I give a shout out to it now? I don't know if we have time. I do want to say the one work thing, and I'll save my food thing for later in the week. But I do want to say one work thing, because I'm back to working I'm back to working, period. But I did work, mornings for a long time where I hid, and I didn't have to interact with a lot of people. And so I had talked about on the podcast a few weeks ago having to acclimate myself to a more professional environment, in that, it's collared shirts and it's not dress pants. It's jeans, nice shoes, but it's just more professional environment because people are coming in. You're face to face with people who are coming through. And so, yeah, it makes more sense. Well, at the radio station, look, I'm not bad at my hygiene. My hygiene's fine, but there are times when you'd go in a little rusty, a little crusty, and that was okay because you're standing behind the microphone. I had my own studio. No one was coming in and bothering me. That could be gross. For those of you who are late night shower people, you're disgusting. I'm sorry. You're disgusting. You're as disgusting as that frog that was just in my throat. You're disgusting, late night shower people. You take a shower at night and then you sleep and get all greasy and sweaty and yucko. And then you just put on clothes in the morning and you head out into the world and you expect you're fresh as a daisy? Absolutely not. I tried this the other night. I sweat. I'm gross. I could feel the hair that I don't have on my head being all greasy. And, I put the deodorant on in the morning and it feels the deodorant, when you put it on after the shower, feels like part of the process. When you put deodorant on the next morning, after you've taken a shower the night before, it just feels like you're compensating for the smell that exists. And it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's working. You haven't showered, so you sweat overnight, and then you're just it's way more of a chance you're going to keep sweating. You just already feel sweaty when you put your clothes on. And it's just more likely that you're going to sweat that day. It was gross. I just felt disgusting. I didn't want to talk to people. I'm like, don't smell me today. Don't come by and look at me. So you late night shower people, I think you might be crazy. Or maybe you've never taken a shower in the morning, but I'm team morning shower for life, just in terms of actually taking care of yourself and proper hygiene. It's shower in the morning. All right, so we cleared the air on that. Thank you. Hang on, I got to check something real quick while Kelly's What Are You Into plays.
Kelly's What Are You Into?
All right, good. My buddy Alex just texted me, and I wanted to review. He's in a new Dungeons and Dragons group. That's not my Kelly's What Are You Into? But I wanted to hear about it because I wanted to hear about how his game session went, and he sent me a good long text, and I'm excited to read it. Okay. I'm into the Olympics. I'm into the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I'm going to give my mom credit for this. Leslie Widmer always promoted the Olympics when we were growing up. And so we always were a big Olympic family. The Widmer family was a big Widmer family, the extended family. We loved the Olympics. And I'm all in. Saturday, Sunday, I've been dialed in. So here's where I'm at with this. And again, I always follow the Olympics. I always think they're great. I've thought this ever since I was a kid. I love the idea of so many different games. I love games. So many different games, so many different sports being played in a couple weeks' time and people being awarded for being the best in the world at that game or sport. Oh, I think that is just such a cool concept. So I'm all in. And I've got an approach this year that's very different than how I've approached it in previous years. And I've got to say, I really, really like it. So first of all, I'll let you know what I've seen so far. Again, this was Saturday and Sunday. I watched some of the gymnastics prelim stuff. I was hoping that Olivia would think it was way cooler than she did. She thought it was okay. The hard part was there was a lot more talking going on and not as much on the floor stuff. So it took a long time in between things, and she was losing interest. So I've watched some of the gymnastics stuff. I've watched 3 men's basketball games, including the USA game today. Well, we're good, and we're going to win gold. That's pretty obvious. I mean, France, I watched the France game. They're really good. They got Wemby. They got other dudes. They got Rudy Gobert. They got another really big name whose name I'm Nicholas Batum. There's another one that I'm forgetting that's really good. Sorry. Yeah, I know he's listening. France was good. They looked awesome. But yeah, USA today. Holy cow, man. I mean, KD is a bucket, walking bucket, and he was a dagger. I know in the preliminary games, the play-in stuff or whatever the pool play was, he wasn't playing, and the USA was barely winning games, and they were down to I forget what the team they almost lost to was. That was not good, but they didn't have KD. KD's a difference. KD is just an absolute scoring threat. He's so good at basketball. LeBron's unreal. LeBron's 100 years old and dominating at a all-time high. I mean, he looked like the best player on the court for a lot of stretches, and he's older than everybody. Nobody's as old as LeBron out there. Steph is winning me over a bit. Steph Curry looked good, and he was enjoyable. Okay? I am somebody who can admit when I see things with my eyes, because I do this because I want everyone to be able to do this. I can admit that the Steph Curry that I saw today playing for Team USA was really awesome to watch. And he was all bought in, and he's been very enjoyable, the stuff that has come out of the Olympics with him. And so I've really enjoyed the 3 days of Steph Curry videos, and then, of course, the game today. Really like Steph. Anthony Edwards is a superstar. Anthony Edwards is everything we need for sports. We've covered this on the podcast before. He was fine today in the game. It wasn't like he was crazy great, but he was very good, and he's been awesome in all the interview stuff and the videos, him and the gals who the ping pong players coming up and challenging him. Like, he's just been great. Anthony Edwards is wonderful. They're really good. It's so cool seeing Coach Few on the bench also. That was really cool. It's like, hey, I know that guy. I know that guy. That's cool. Okay, so Team USA, I watched some of that. I watched 3 handball games. 3. I'm fascinated with handball. Fascinated. I watched the one. It was Denmark against, I want to say Denmark, Finland. I don't know if that's exactly right, but they kept describing it as if LeBron and Michael Jordan, if they were played against each other, that's what it was. The 2 best to ever do it. And I watched that game. I watched a couple other ones. I think handball is so cool. I think it's one of those sports that you never watch. I've never played it, but I get to see it in the Olympics, and all I can think is, how do I get a chance to play handball? I want to try it. I think it looks so fun. So I was learning about the rules. I watched a couple of videos explaining the rules of handball, and it looks like about 3 steps is what you get. You can dribble, and then it resets your 3 steps. I was trying to learn how you play defense on them, what you can and can't do, the scoring. The penalty shots are kind of weird because you can do a fake out throw and then reset and throw again, but your foot has to stay planted. I'm fascinated with handball. I find it very enjoyable to watch. It's very fast-paced, very fun. I watched one men's beach volleyball game. I wanted to see that court under the Eiffel Tower. It's awesome. The most tiring. Water polo and men's beach volleyball are the 2 things I've seen that wore me out just watching it. Water polo looks like everyone's going to drown. And then the beach volleyball, I just feel tired watching them run and jump in sand the entire time. In sand, jumping nonstop. Miserable. So that was cool. And then I watched a lot today. I watched almost all of the women's skateboard street skate stuff. I didn't finish all the prelims, but then I watched all the finals, and it was great. I think the skateboarding in the Olympics, the fact that it's the first weekend, right? So before like the real big swimming stuff gets going, the diving stuff, like the water things. And then of course in the following week, we get to the track and field stuff. I think it's a great kickoff to throw in there on the first weekend. It was great. The girls were awesome today. They're all so young. They're 14, 16, 18. They're so young and so talented on the skateboard. And so I thought today's was great. It entertained me quite a bit, and it really hyped me up for tomorrow because the dudes are amazing at it also. And it does get kicked up just a little bit of a notch. There's a little more speed involved. The tricks get a little bit more intense, but the gap isn't so crazy where today you're like, oh, they just jumped. You think 14-year-old kid doing something. I think of any 14-year-old kid doing something, I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to do a trick, 14-year-old kid outside, jump over the ledge. That's what I think for 14-year-old, right? The guys are much older, and so you just think, oh, they've got more practice. No, wrong. The girls were doing crazy tricks today. So I'm excited for tomorrow. The dudes are going to go. It's going to be very fun. Ryan Sheckler is killing it with the as like color commentator for the skateboarding. Oh, he was so enjoyable. He made it so fun to watch. That guy is so stinking likable. Okay, let's talk about how my approach is to the Olympics this year. I'm loving them. Please, if you're liking them, message me about them. I can't get enough. My approach this year has been different. I don't know what's going on. This started maybe about 6-7 years ago, and it started with shows like The Voice and American Idol, and it's translated, I've realized now, to the Olympics. I am out on a lot of the primetime stuff. I'm out on the primetime stuff, and that's not because I can't watch at primetime. I will watch a lot of the stuff I watch at nighttime once the kids are in bed. But what I've been doing is I go to Peacock, and Peacock has all the categories for the events right there. You can click on whatever one you want, swimming, and then you can click on the race that you want to watch and just watch that race. You can click on a basketball game, just watch that basketball game, handball game, and you can just watch it. So it happened probably during the day, and you can watch it at night. And I love that feature on Peacock. It's the only way I've watched the Olympics. I did watch a bit of the Gold Zone, which is like the red zone for the NFL, with red zone guys, which was crazy. But I found myself then falling back to like, I wanted to watch a beach volleyball game. Let's go watch it. And I've realized, and this is the thing I realized, and I'm not all the way out on it. Don't think I'm just like this cold-hearted dude, because some of it sounds interesting. But if I have now my limited time to watch the Olympics, I want to watch the events. I want to watch the games. I want to watch the sports. I want to watch competition. And I'm out on story packages. I'm out. You watch the prime time, and they go, coming up in 30 minutes, Michael Phelps races for his 116th gold medal. And then this is at least how it used to be. And Bob Costas would be in there, and they would do 30 minutes of stories on athletes. And just stories about like they lived in South Dakota, and they learned to run real fast and jump. And then they fell on hard times, and then they persevered, and now they're in the Olympics. And they do this story, and the story's great, but I want to see the events. So I'm out on primetime stuff. I just want to watch the events. And what I wish they would do is a couple things. One, tell me the story just while the race is happening. I watched a 400-meter swimming event today. That looks exhausting. And it's a long time. It was 4 or 5 minutes for them to do this. You got plenty of time to tell me a story about whoever's in lane 3 and whatever happened to them. You have plenty of time. And if you have a big package that you want to show me, clip that one. But if you have a big video package you want to show me, you know what? Tell me a little bit of it. Maybe picture a little bit of the story, and then just tell me, because it's 2024. Do you want to see the whole thing? Go here and go to Peacock and go to our interviews page and type in Jimmy Jimmyson, and you can see this story that we were just kind of hinting and teasing, and you can watch our video package on it. That's what I want to do. Anyways, I'm out on primetime stuff. And so I'm watching it on Peacock with the event. I'm really digging it. Okay, that's the podcast today. Thanks for listening. Thank you. Tomorrow we're going to have trivia. I'm very excited about it. I hope you are too. That's going to go out for Patreons. Patreon.com/Sean Whitmer Podcast. I hope people use it. Use it at your office. Use it with your friends. Take it to a bar and play it there. It's only going to be 21 questions to start. We're going to see how long if we make it longer eventually. I'm doing 7 questions each round because that is a shout out to Beat the Show, the game that I made up for the Jay and Kevin show. I love 7 questions, and so we will do 7 questions each round. Who knows? Maybe that will change at some point. Do we have any comments left to read? I think I have one from Yvonne about the Friday episode where I called Brandon and talked about our college football dynasty. And she said, on Spotify, it only went 21 minutes. Had to go to YouTube to finish watching/listening to it. I did listen to all of it. But I'm not much of a gamer, but I like listening to you talk to your friends. Thank you, Yvonne, for that. Yeah, what happened there? I ended up checking. The whole piece of audio didn't load on Spotify. It did on Apple. There you go, Brandon. And it did on YouTube, but it didn't on Spotify. So one strike Spotify. Hopefully today's uploads in full. You can comment on the podcast, question, comments, concerns, plugs, whatever you want to comment. Sean'sLife.com is the easiest way to do it. If you listen on Spotify, you can comment there on the actual episode. And of course, if you watch it on YouTube, you can comment on YouTube, and we will reply to comments at the end of the next episode. Thank you for listening. Thanks for letting me rant about the Olympics. Go Team USA.